Now, Matt, there is another part of the M+ puzzle.
I love puzzles.
That will impact non-M+ players because these are dungeons that you'll be doing without a timer on regular Mythic mode.
Heroic players are under fire.
Everyone
I can't believe
is under fire, especially if you're a melee. So, here's what happened. They've added abilities to Mists of Tirna Scithe.
No! Why would you do that?
And to Siege of Boralus. And there have been reactions to this. So, let's walk through. I'll read the new abilities, Matt, and we'll see what you make of them. The Mistveil Defender now casts Mist Ward, a big AoE in the ground, does damage to players and DR for enemies inside. Fun, fun, fun.
Why?
Fun, fun, fun. The Mistveil Defender also casts Expel, which is a charge and knockback on a targeted player.
Press defensive.
It has Defender's Aura, grants all other mobs in combat Defender's Aura, but currently doesn't do anything. So we'll see what happens when they make it do something. Now they have removed an ability that was a channeled frontal.
Spear Flurry. Yeah,
does that kind of suggest they're maybe not as hot on there being a channeled frontal in the general soup that people could quite easily walk into without noticing, or do they just think it's too much given everything else?
If I remember correctly, it could easily be just we're getting rid of that to replace it with other things that we find interesting. But it could be because I remember Spear Flurry was. Obviously, I haven't done this Tirna Scithe in a while now. Because if I look at it, I'm going to after my timing at Shadowlands, I'm going to rage. I'm just going to I'll do it. Well, I'll do it and the spelling comes out, but. Not before then. Spear Flurry was instant, I think, in that it just started. I might be wrong, but I vaguely recall it being very fast and you having to react super quick, which I think is a little bit. You can see how the other things are, a little bit better, a little bit more interesting. Now it depends on whether or not these are interruptible or not. Yeah. Because you look at Mistward, and if Mistward is that has that has a low cooldown and you can't interrupt it, then you'd rage because the DR is crazy. But if it is just this is a focus kick, you're like, okay, that's fine. And Expel, knockback target player charge, I think that's okay. I think that's okay because it sucks, but the game has to suck sometimes. Otherwise it's not fun. So I'm not particularly mad at this, but removing Spear Flurry seems like this is kind of a better thing. Now, I will say there's definitely people who are if they add any difficulty to anything, people will complain, which you kind of have to push a little bit back against by going, no, you're having trouble because you did this on beta and then you're doing it again and it's harder. Now, that's probably where people want the results more than the actual experience, especially when they're comparing like against like. You throw them into this instead of without throwing them into any other Mythic Tirna Scithe and they go, oh, it's fine. And you throw it, or you throw them the comparison. They go, "Oh, but this is harder, and I don't like it." I think some of that does happen a little bit, which is obviously there's kind of.
I have a feeling it's probably just the area denial.
Yeah.
Aspect of it. Now there is another change, which is for the final boss. Anima Direct Rejection does a bit more damage, and there's a new ability called Coalescing Poison that pulls everyone towards the boss, and then you got to run out.
I think that's
largely probably fine. Siege of Boralus, then it's got some new things. Let's see what's going on here. Iron Hook from Tropper Red Hook. Failing to kite boss through a bomb now pulls all players instead of just a fixated target. Lovely. Then Dread Captain Lockwood now only retreats at 66 and 33% health, where previously it was at full energy. So that's basically just more of a fixed duration. Or it happens twice, and that's. Twice based on health, and that's that.
That's much better than kill times, meaning everything.
Dread Volley, the intermission swirly radius has been decreased
by a whopping 10%.
Matt, Fiery Ricochet, new ability, high damage shot to 4 players, leaving a dot that needs to be spot healed, and Mass Bombardment marks everybody's location every 2 seconds for 8 seconds, and bombs fall. I mean, it's not on your man, fucking. Flipping we dude at the end of Freehold. It's that. Isn't it? Yeah, it's basically that. So there you go. Now, there are community reactions, Matt. Community reactions. Such as the worst melee experience I've ever had in a Mythic Plus dungeon.
I find that hard to believe. There's definitely, There might be a bit of recency bias in this because I remember having no fun in a few of them before.
From Jedith, 1 step forward, 10 stacks back. And nope.
I mean, a lot of this does boil down to me whether or not Mistward is interruptible. If it's not, then this is dumb. But that's the only one here that I find is actually an issue whatsoever.
It seems to be implementation-wise because people who have played it seem to have concerns.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I'm assuming it's that.
Like you can see, you can see how annoying it would be.
Yeah, and I can see mass bombardment being a pain in the balls as well. Just sorry, the swirlies now, asshole. You're like, okay, fine.
Oh, if only there was like volcanic and storming at the same time, that would be really class.
Which I think it's fun to actually consider this because as Cass says here, removing the longer range for melee specs is definitely a decision they're making.
It is a decision they're making.
And I don't know if I completely agree with that decision they're making, mostly because I play Feral Druid.
You'd almost call it this is a conceptual problem, a conceptual designer problem, but player-facing, it's not a problem.
It's not something you want to take away either. That's one thing that I find interesting. People get used to a range. And I think when people are used to a range, right?
Game sense.
And then you step a little bit out and you're still in range. You like slowly adapt over time and it doesn't feel jarring or anything. It's like, okay, that's completely fine. That's okay. You increase things. But when you pull it away again, then you have people step in and go, step out and go, oh, I'm not in range. Oh shit. Especially if they're used to range because they play the game for like, however many hundreds of hours in an expansion, if not thousands of hours in expansion. You get used to these systems, especially when WoW is pretty bad at communicating a lot of that. As an example, actually, one of the big examples is if you're playing a Red Paladin and you do not have how about this? You don't have any add-ons that show you when you're out of range for melee or something like that. Most of your abilities are going to go off fine.
Yeah,
because you're actually just arranged, except you need to be in melee range for your auto attacks and for your Templar Strike if you have Templar Strike. If you don't take Templar Strike, if you have, say you don't have Crusading Strike on your bar or it's there, it's not going to show out of range because it's a passive.
Yeah.
So there might just be times you're sitting there going, oh, I didn't realize I was losing a bunch of damage because I thought I was in range because I was in range last week. This week I'm not in range. Fuck. Which is, whenever you've got your final verdict is going whomp from 7 miles away. That's actually a very good point, Rexington. You know that one mini boss in Bracket Hide where you can just barely melee him during a blade storm?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that bugged me as well. And it kind of helped. It was helped by me playing Ret in my testing of some delves. But there's a couple that are just blade storm mobs. Fungal storm, blade storm, whatever they want to call it. It is like a don't stand inside my hitbox or you become minced meat. Okay, sure. That's fine. That's like perfectly fine. Running away from that and just being able to throw judgments and, final verdicts and blade of justice and basically everything in my fucking toolkit, except for melees, felt fine. But I can't imagine being a warrior just like, oh, sorry, run away now. You're like, yeah, sure. But compared to before, where you kind of have all that range, it is just taking away a core tool from people and going, which is going to result in a lot of melee dissatisfaction, especially like as soon as pre-patch happens. People will be mad about playing melee, and I think rightfully so. It's similar to Feral, where Feral is getting a massive tuning down of basically resource availability. Now, a lot are, but for the majority of them,
particularly bad for Feral.
Yeah, so like with DKs, with what was the other one with Monk, for example, a little bit of that resource being taken away is fine because it leaves it in a more balanced place. You're never really hurting for them unless you're very low haze, like with Frost 2K. But with Feral, they've just went, you are hungry now. You are energy starved. That's your life now. That's your life now. And we're like, okay, thanks. That's sure. I see the vision. For, listen, you have to be careful with your Tiger's Fury. You have to snapshot your dots. You have to not spend all your energy. You have to, make sure you pull enough to get your ferocious bouts with bonus energy. Go for that. Sure, fine. But coming from I dot everything, spam Primal Wrath and spam Tiger Fury in an AoE pull and do 1 billion damage, it's just going to suck. It's going to suck horribly until you get used to it in like a patch.
Yeah.
If not more.
See, the thing is, I don't know. That does not seem as fun to me. And we've certainly been through the whole discussion about downtime within specs. I remember that, like, that was really a topic around BFA.
Yeah.
If I remember.
Yeah, BFA had downtime and GCD.
But of course, it was downtime. It was downtime and the GCD change immediately after the end of Legion, which in hindsight may have been one of the more insane things to do in the game.
Yeah, like
it was like peak, welcome to a video game. For the first, for the prologue level, you have all of your abilities and you're God, and then you start level 1 with amnesia and you slowly learn them back. Remember that old trope?
Yeah, I love it, but only when it's a nice Metroidvania and not it's taken away forever actually, which is one of the problems with this. Where even with pre-patch, right, you don't have your hero talents.
Yep.
But the game's designed around playing at level 80 now.
Yeah.
You're not going to be level 80 for like a month. Enjoy. And I know we're sort of used to that, right?
Well, I guess they'd maybe say that the difference is we have very high ratings.
Yeah.
And the like, so we'll have way more haste right now. And I guess their hope is going to be that us right now is not the biggest problem in the universe because it only lasts for a month, but probably will feel okay without a hero talent because we still do have like more haste and crit and things like that.
Yeah.
In theory, maybe.
In theory.
We will see how it goes.
Yeah.
So that's basically that. Some Mythic Plus shenanigans. Overall, though, I'll say where I'm kind of on with Mythic Plus is certainly feeling better. I think fundamentally the changes they're doing are pretty damn good. It does look more exciting to me, and at the very least, doing new Mythics, I think, will be a really good, engaging experience. Even doing the Mythic Zero sort of world tour in the first week of Dragonflight, that stuff's always the most fun. You're learning new dungeons, you're doing them under geared, so the mechanics still matter, and there's no rush bullshit. That's going to exist in the same way that it did previously, but harder. Numerically, right, because of the dungeon changes. So I think it's just going to be a positive thing.
Yeah, it'll be excellent. I just there's definitely a case of they're being a wee bit pig-headed with some of their changes, and I hope it works out okay. Like Feral's an example, people are very positive on it, but those are to put lack of a better term, feral perverts who are like the kind of people who want that very well and have played Feral for a long time. So they're like, oh, this actually, I like this a little bit more. It puts me to do this. I, focus on blood talents and Tiger's Fury, stuff like that. But I think for the average player, it's just going to suck comparatively, and that's going to be getting used to. Same way I think all of this stuff. Now, it was brought up that is this just a case of them kind of pushing towards the affixes are less of your design focus, less of your actual, you're not thinking about them as much. You're kind of, okay, you do this one affix, so we have to make the dungeons a little bit more difficult in comparison. That's definitely what's happening here, 100%. Because that's, obviously the game has come a surprisingly long way in, an expansion and a half. With basically 2 expansions long from the first design of the Shadowlands dungeons to them now. Which is kind of interesting. But, you see the natural design changes of, this is what this would look like if we did it again today. At least in some degree. So you can kind of see that. But it is just going to come down to how people like it when it's rubber hits the road, I think.
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah.
But also, melee stonks down. Haha.